Sad to say that last week news broke here on LMFM radio, I think it was Thursday afternoon, of a tragedy that was unfolding on a local waterway. Rose Hall Reservoir was the scene where young Gareth Reid McGurk lost his life. He was only 13 years of age. And this time of year, yes, the waterways attract lots and lots of people, youngsters and older people alike, but there is danger and we need to be cognisant of it. So with this in mind, I'm joined on Late Lunch this afternoon by Dermot McConneran. He's the officer in charge with the Irish Coast Guard, and their educational officer, Joe Andrews. Gentlemen, you're very welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me. I suppose, first off, I said it before, we extend again our sympathies to Gareth Reid McGurk's family. And Joe, Dermot, you were one of the first groups to Rose Hall last week. Not a pretty sight.
No, it wasn't a pretty sight at all. And first of all, we'd like to send our condolences out to Gareth's family and his friends. It's one of the sad ones. We're doing this for years, Jerry. I'm involved 20 years in search and rescue, and obviously when we respond to a call, which we did last Thursday, we expect to save the person. That's what we go out to do. We're all highly trained to do that, and that's, on this occasion, that's what we were hoping would happen. Unfortunately, when we got there, it was too late. Gareth was already under the water. We had other emergency services there. We had the fire brigade, the Gardaí and the ambulance service, and we searched, and eventually we had a blind fisherman divers there, and we recovered young Gareth into the Coast Guard boat and brought him to shore.
That particular scene you describe, when you arrive and you know you can't make a successful recovery and you're searching for a body at that stage, and a young boy's body, I'd say words can't describe the distraught nature of his friends who were with him, and then the family and what it follows very quickly. You see,
it's one of them situations, as I say, when we respond, someone calls 999, we do expect to save the person, and 99% of the time that's what happens. Unfortunately, over the years, there is times where it turns into recovery. It is much more difficult when it's a child. Yeah. We are professionals. We're volunteer professionals, but we're classed as professionals. What we do, we're trained in that way. But you look at us. There's painters, there's salespersons, there's tilers, there's builders, there's reserve guards, there's firemen in our unit. We go back to work, but we have to deal with this. We have to deal when it's a child. You have to deal with it. It's much more harder. So I can only imagine what Gareth's family, his friends, are going through
at this time. It's shocking. It really is
terrible.
Shocking. You're with us today, both of you, to talk about water safety, because we have another 5 weeks of school holidays. The weather looks to be shaping up nice again, and of course waterways are a magnet for everybody. People love to get out, to enjoy the water, and that's what it's there for, of course. But talk to me about swimming in places like Rose Hall or reservoirs or remote places where, maybe there's not a lot of people around.
I suppose an example of go back to Rose Hall and the tragedy with Gareth, it was such a simple thing that happened. Rose Hall is a great example of some of the inland waterways and some of these reservoirs and some of these places where we hope that young people will not swim.
Is that what you're saying today? It's really, these are not places to swim.
Yes. There's designated areas for swimming. And you have lifeguards in Bettystown, Port Beach and different areas. They're designated, they're safe. But the likes of Rose Hall, I walked out that day when we were looking for Gareth, and I walked into the water. The water was up to me knee, and that was out about 2 metres. And after that, it dropped to 10 metres.
Just like that?
Just like that. And that's how dangerous these inland waterways, some of these places are. Young kids don't realise how dangerous they are. We're trying to educate them, we're trying to tell them by going around the schools and giving this information, which Joe is going to go into now shortly. But it's an example of, I'm just hoping today that, nothing good can come out of what happened, Gareth. It's happened, and, there's a lot of people hurting, especially his family and friends. But what I am hoping, even talking today, is that, maybe something in the long run will come out of it, something good, that maybe some of his friends, some of the kids that's listening today will see how easy that Garrett lost his life in these tragic circumstances and will think twice with this good weather not to be going to places like that to swim.
So designated areas, Joe, that's what we're talking about here. Go to those areas.
Yes, if it's at all possible, like as Dermot mentioned on Bettystown and at Port Beach, there are lifeguards on duty, and at least if you're swimming there, you're in their view. They can, if you get into difficulties, they can come and assist you, whatever your difficulty might be.
But I'll put it to you, we were all children once, and boys will be boys and girls will be girls, and they'll go and they'll, there are rivers and lakes and waterways all around the northeast that they can go to when weather is good and that. What do you do if you see children in an area that they shouldn't be in? Should you go to them and talk to them?
That most definitely, make them aware of the dangers that are around them, because and I know as we're kids, you don't always think of the dangers that are immediately around you. So by all means, if you see children on the water and you think they're going to be in some immediate danger, let them know what can be around, and even prompt them of some things that might have happened, and try and get it into their mindset.
You're out and about, you're the education officer, you're in schools, you're talking to them. Do you think they're taking this in? They listen to you when you go in and you go around. You do a great job, and your presentation, I've seen it, is fantastic with them. When something like this happens, do you despair? We
do. When we see something like that happen last week, and noticeably yesterday, I knew a lot of the kids that were there. We've seen them in the schools. And they do take the information on board. Thankfully, they do take the information on board. The majority do. The majority do take the information, and they will use it. Like at Christmas, we had a young lad who fell into the River Boyne, and through the quick thinking of his friends, they formed together a chain, and they got the life buoy. They got him and kept him safe until our boat got to him. That all happened very quickly. It was they knew the number to contact, which was most important. If we can get them to know the number at least they can call for help and not be standing worrying, not wondering what to do. What to do in emergency.
Let's talk about that for a minute, Dermot. If you saying that, we're saying to everybody, go to the designated areas where the lifeguards are, the safe areas. They're well pinpointed all around the northeast here in counties Louth and Meath. But say something happens and children are out, young people or whatever, and they're on water they shouldn't be, and suddenly something goes wrong. Can I ask you this? Does it matter whether you can swim or not swim when an emergency happens?
What we recommend, if somebody sees somebody in trouble in the water, is not to jump in after them.
Whether you can swim or not?
Yeah, we don't want a double tragedy. We nearly had a double tragedy the other day
in Rose Hall.
Yeah, it was close. One of his friends, and they done all. And just saying that, I know, talking to them on the day, they done as much as they could possibly.
So being a swimmer doesn't give you any edge whatsoever. Now I know, right? You can get about in the water, but you're saying don't.
Being a swimmer, Jerry, an adult swimmer who's competent swimming, obviously, has a great chance of saving somebody. It is their choice to do it if they believe it's safe to do. Now, there's areas you can go to. You jump in the Boyne, if you see somebody in the Boyne, which happens on a regular occasion with us on call-outs, you have an ebb tide and somebody jumps in to try and save that person, you're going to have 2 fatalities. An ebb tide, no matter how good a swimmer you are, you're in difficulty.
That means the water is flowing fast.
Flowing fast out.
And it's not like going in a swimming pool or anything like that. So you're saying there are techniques as well to be learned with rescuing people if you intend going in?
Yes, it's very important.
When someone's in trouble, what is the best thing to do? If you see somebody in trouble, is the first thing, to look to see if there's a buoyancy aid or a life?
Absolutely. The first thing is to shout for help. Look around to see is there a buoyancy aid, a life buoy, and call 112 999 and ask for the Coast Guard immediately. This is the kind of thing that needs to be done immediately. The one thing about around the town here in Drogheda, and a lot of our call-outs is on the Boyne, there is life buoys every 10 metres or so, and they're there to be thrown in. Joe mentioned one there. We had a few of these over the last year where people were hanging on to life buoys and we rescued them into the boat.
It made the difference.
It made the difference because, people are listening to what we're saying. Use the life buoy. Don't jump in yourself, and we will get there within minutes and take the people out of the water. And that's what we do.
So In a synopsis, think about before you go into the water. It's a huge decision to make whether you can swim or can't swim. Look for the lifebuoy. Ring 999 or 112, folks. They are the numbers you must have in your mind. And the first thing to do is to ring those numbers.
Yes, and ask for the Coast Guard.
Immediately.
Yes.
And that's your first port of call. Now, besides people, people go to water and they just think they can dabble their feet or go out a bit and, even if they can't swim, go up so far in the water. But the danger is, isn't it, as you said there, and Joe said, or Dermot said, Joe, you don't know what you're walking into. You don't know what's beneath the surface.
It's the unknown. You can walk out and you think you're safe in your environment, but your environment can change quite quickly. And all of a sudden, from what was enjoying yourself can turn into looking for help yourself.
I'd say it goes without saying, besides going out in the water and to play around or try and have a dip or swim or whatever, going afloat on anything, be it something temporary, kids make a raft or, they bring something that they can blow up. No.
Definitely not. No, we've had an incident as well, I think we might have covered before, where we had kids who made a raft and it was in a disused quarry, so we got a call to the two lads that were missing from early morning, and we got the call in the early evening. We went along and we found them. We located them at the quarry, who were hanging on to a small island at the quarry. So we had a small tender with us, and we sent that out and got them and brought them back on shore. We also had the helicopter's assistance that night, which we needed because of the time of the year and it was dark, so to use the lights. But it's just to show you the mindset. Kids, they will try and make these rafts, and they're so dangerous. It's the same as the lilos. When you're on the sea, you have the wind and the tide working against each other. All of a sudden you could be way out beyond anybody's capabilities of doing anything for you, and again you'd need the Coast Guard to come along and rescue you.
Fresh water not as buoyant as salt water. I think that should be well known by everybody, Dermot, as well. And you've other users of fresh water besides people going in this hot weather. I'm thinking of anglers, which I love my fishing myself, people out canoeing, kayaking on the rivers. Do you think, though, that people who are in the angling game, canoeing, kayaking, who maybe have done some training and that, are safer?
Yes, we would not have many call-outs with that, angling or guys in kayaks and that. They're very well trained and they have the right equipment. Their personal equipment that they're wearing is the right equipment. We have never seen a kayak with the wrong equipment on them. Guys fishing, no, they usually fishing areas they know, so they know the banks and all that. It's not really an issue with us, that kind of thing. It's more, I suppose it's more young people, as
off
we said
the
earlier.
cuff, summertime.
Yes.
The joys of being a young person, wanting to get out there and have a good time. I want to take a short break because we've been focusing on fresh water for the last while, but of course the sea is a different animal entirely, and I want to get to that with the Irish Coast Guard and Dermot McConran and Joe Andrews after the break. Now there's one word, tide, Dermot, that people should really dwell on, because water moves.
It does, and it can move very fast. Going back to, we're on about the sea here, obviously. I would, to make sure people swim in designated areas, and they'll see the designated areas, they'll see the flags and they'll see the lifeguards. That said, we'll ask, don't swim beyond your depth. That is to make sure, you can touch the ground with your feet, in case you get a cramp, in case anything happens. No matter how good a swimmer you are, make sure your feet can touch the ground. Don't swim alone. Make sure somebody knows that you're swimming where you are in case you do get in trouble. Don't swim when you're tired, obviously for obvious reasons, in strange places. Don't swim out after anything floating like a football or anything like that. A dangerous thing to do. Don't stay in the water too long is another one. Hypothermia, even if the water is warm, you think, but hypothermia can set in. The other great one is swim parallel with the shore.
That's a good tip.
It is a great tip because it means you will always be able to put your feet on the ground. So, you want to go out and enjoy yourself in the sea. So swim parallel with the shore and you'll still will have a good time and enjoy yourself.
And don't go out in a full stomach. I presume that still holds. There's no point in having a feed and going out into the water.
Absolutely. You will get cramps, you will feel sick, and that is a dangerous situation to be in. The other thing we would love to see people do is just to learn basic life saving techniques, so they can help somebody else before we get there. And it's another easy thing to do. The other thing I suppose about the sea as well, Jerry, is boating. We have a lot of people with boats. The one thing about it in this country, you can actually buy a boat, you don't need a licence.
And away you go.
It's a bit mad. It's
Often puzzles me, isn't it?
Yes.
You can, and it can be a lethal weapon.
Absolutely lethal weapon. And we see people have no idea sometimes on boats, and we be called out and we're rescuing them. And that's constant. That's happening. It's happening last week. We had 3 or 4 calls. Last week we had a couple of calls there. Saturday we had had a Clogherhead lifeboat towed a boat was drifting out at sea for hours with one person on board.
So people get these vessels.
Yes.
They think that it's just a question of launching them and away they go, Joe. And yet, it's a serious matter because you have tides. Weather. What about weather, boys?
Yeah. The other thing is weather. We had a lot of fog, as we've seen lately. There has been boats that got caught out and couldn't get back in because of fog. We were called out to help them. It is a constant thing with boats. We had a boat last week. It lost engine power as well. 2 people on board, no life jackets. Another big no-no.
So if you intend getting a boat, or you have a boat and you're not unsure, you're better doing some training.
Absolutely.
Before you actually head out onto the high seas with it. Or on any water, really, with a boat. Now, Joe, you've brought in to me today, which you did last time we were here, a Coast Guard safety team, a lovely glossy brochure here with nice advice in it, and pens and pencils and a little armband as well. What's this about?
This is about getting the basics into the kids, the 6 T's. So it's training. So ensure that you have the right equipment for your activity, and don't forget first aid training. So if anything does happen out there, you can administer first aid. Take correct equipment, and always wear a flotation device when on the water. Planning your trip is vital. So if you're going, have a plan, inform somebody of your plan so they know they can track you. So if you're going from Morningtown, the big stone of Morningtown, down to Clogherhead, just say for instance, inform MRCC, let them know that you're leaving at 2 o'clock, you expect to be there safe at 3 o'clock, and you hope to be back home.
Who's MRCC? The Marine Rescue
Coordinating Centre, yeah.
Okay, so let them know.
Yes, so then if you let them know when you're setting off, and then when you return, well then they know you're back on land and everything's safe. But if it goes by your expected time of coming back, they can alert the emergency services, ourselves or someone else. Always tell somebody. So if you have a family member or somebody at home, let them know too that what the plan is. And so again, if it goes past the 6 o'clock mark, well they can try contacting you by phone or radio if they have a VHF radio, and talk. So communicate with people along your way. Again, phone or VHF radio with MRCC. You might have had difficulties, you might have to stop, so it's going to slow you down. You can inform them where you're at, your position is, and take time. Every second counts in getting help when you're on the water. So if it's vital to know the emergency numbers 112 and 999.
They are the numbers. Put them into your head. They're not that difficult to remember.
Most important to ask when you do see somebody, or even if you think you see somebody in difficulties, contact us and let us know, because we'd rather be safe than be sorry.
This is a new programme because this has been ongoing. You're in the schools constantly. You're out there. That's part of your work. You're bringing this new programme to the schools for the new term. We have a question. Somebody has just sent us in a question. What happens if your vehicle goes into water and it's submerged? Have you any advice on that one?
We deal with a lot of vehicles that submerged, and unfortunately a lot of them is on Behystown Beach. I would recommend anyone that goes on the beach to read the signs. Don't go beyond the signs where it says don't drive, which happens. Now, maybe your listener there, maybe he was launching the boat and the vehicle went in with the boat. If that happens, call the Coast Guard. We will recover the boat, we will recover the vehicle.
And then somebody, say in an emergency, say somebody plunges a car, and say you're in a car with somebody, it's dark and you go into a canal or a river or something like that. You know this thing that I often heard, that you let the car fill up with water before you get out. Is that...
Yes.
Is that a truism?
Yes, that's one of the recommendations. Now,
easier said than done.
Easier said than done. You're in a car and it's dark and you're in a canal, and the first thing you want to do is get out. But I suppose by opening the window fully, the water's going to rush in and push you back into the back of the car. The idea of that, saying is the way to the car fills up, is to let the water come up slowly. When it's near the top, you will be actually able to open the door.
And get out.
You can't open the door.
Yes.
Because of the pressure.
You're equalising the pressure inside and outside.
That's
so I hope that answers your question. Between if your car gets stuck on the beach or in water and they contact the Coast Guard. How long does it take you to drown?
Very quickly, from 10 seconds till a minute.
As quick as that?
As quick as that. Yeah, 10 seconds to a minute, your lungs become filled with water. Obviously, that stops the heart, the oxygen stops going to the body, and that actually what will kill you. If you're not taking out the water between 10 seconds and a minute and giving emergency care, the chances of survival is very slim.
That is quick.
It is quick.
It's quicker than I thought.
Cold water, there was a little bit more time because everything slows down with the cold, but unfortunately it is very quick.
We want to emphasise again that today, the aim of today is to raise awareness, to ask you, listening today, your families, your children, to be aware when you go near water. Wherever that water is, when you're in proximity to it, it is dangerous. And small children, keeping an eye, because it doesn't take a massive depth. You mentioned the time there it takes, but it doesn't take a real deep amount of water for a small child to drown either.
That's correct. I think there was a small child drowned down the country there recently in a few inches of water. If your mouth and your nose is covered with water, that's enough. So you can drown in a couple of inches of water, a small child. It's just to keep an eye on children, obviously, and to educate them as much as you can about the safety aspects around any type of water. Just going back to Garrett, I'd just like to say before we finish up here, there was a book of condolences opened by the Mayor in the old Bank of Ireland, Toadstool down at West Street, and we went down and we signed it, obviously, and a lot of the emergency services that was there on the day signed the book. And it maybe just ask your listeners if they're around that area to go in and sign the book. You know, it might give some comfort eventually to, you know, the family to see that the people at Drogheda in grief too of such a tragedy of such a small child, and it might give the parents some kind of
yeah, I think we should leave it at that for today, because we've done this in tribute to Garrett Reid McGurk, and in the hope that some other family won't have to go through what that poor family are going through at this point in time, and we remember him today. Keep up the good work, lads. You do provide a great service, and it's only when we're in crisis situations that we realise you're there.
And the one thing is, Jerry, to everybody that's listening, the young people, is just remember these rules that we're after going through today. Enjoy yourself. Next month is the busiest month for people going out swimming. Enjoy yourself, and most importantly, come home safe.
Irish Coast Guard members Dermot McConnor and the officer in charge and educational officer Joe Andrews, thank you both so much for joining me on the show today.